Hi parents, thank you for joining me today. I have my whiteboard. I have a new whiteboard, so I'm really excited to use it. Today I want to talk about 2 reasons why your kid on the spectrum probably understands more than you think. So if you're new here, hi, my name is Celeste. I'm a BCBA. I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I've been working in the field of ABA therapy, working with autistic kids and their families for over 13 years. As a parent, I think it's really easy to assume our kids don't understand, especially when they're not able to respond. That expressive language isn't there, right? So if your kid is non-speaking, non-vocal, or non-talking, or not able to produce speech or words just yet, I think it's really easy to assume that comprehension isn't there and just to kind of go on autopilot. So here are our reasons. I love this whiteboard, okay? Here are reasons why your child on the spectrum probably understands more than you think. Number 1 is receptive communication is oftentimes higher than expressive communication. Let me explain. When we're babies, it's typical development that receptive language comes first. Expressive language is more being able to emit, vocalize, point, gesture, tap an AAC device. So as babies, we develop receptive language first, right? When a baby is coming into this world, they're not able to talk yet, but they do understand a lot of our language. So what that might look like is you saying, okay, look over here at mommy, and your baby looks at you, or you might say, hey, where's your brother? And the baby looks at brother, or mom says, where's the apple? And the baby's able to point to the apple in the book, right? That's receptive language. That's being able to identify and understand what's going on, okay? I just made a mistake here. You guys didn't tell me. This whiteboard situation is harder than I thought. This should say expressive language, okay? Expressive language is different. Expressive language is able to vocalize, point, gesture, sign. That is expressive communication. And that one comes much later. What happens when our kids have an autism diagnosis is that they may have delays in certain areas within their communication. But just because our kids aren't able to emit expressive communication, they're not able to vocalize, point, gesture to what they want, their receptive language is probably much higher. And sometimes that receptive language is hard to test. There's certain barriers that our kids on the spectrum might have that make it harder to test for where our receptive communication really lies. So for example, like variable attending, like your kid is not even looking at the paper, they're not looking at the assessor. That doesn't automatically mean he or she doesn't understand. So if your child has deficits in eye contact, or even like attending, let's say he's not able to sit in a chair for extended periods of time, that might pose a barrier to get that accurate testing. Maybe his receptive is a lot higher than we might think. And so parents, I asked the question, have you ever had the experience where you're like, let's say chatting with your partner or something, you're like, hey husband, let's say you're cooking breakfast in the morning, right? You're cooking eggs and you ran out of waffles, your kid's favorite breakfast food. And so your husband might say, oh, where are the waffles? And then you turn and you say, oh, we ran out, we don't have any more. And then you hear your kid in the other room kind of whine and start to cry. And you're like, wait, what's going on? Did he just hear what I said? And did he just understand what I said from the other room, saying that we ran out of waffles? And then he started crying, and you're like putting the 2 pieces together. That's a perfect example. Have you had that experience before? Drop in the comments. I want to know. I'm super curious. And just to add, that is also another big reason why we refrain from talking about our kids as if they're not in the room. Because a lot of the time, our kids are able to understand, and it doesn't feel good when people are talking about you like if you're not there. Parents, I really encourage you to talk to your child as if you're presuming competency. That means you're presuming they understand. So I think it's really easy to get into the habit of being like kind of going on autopilot because it's what happens. And as a parent, you might scoop your kid up and then drive them around take them to their appointments, do the things. Whereas if they were speaking, you might talk to them a little differently. You might say, hey, bud, we're gonna put your shoes on and then we're gonna go to grandma's house and then we're gonna get some ice cream, for example, right? I think we treat our kids who are speaking differently because we assume that they understand more. Whereas I think if we speak to our kids that are highly impacted on the spectrum with the same level of expectation that they understand, I think parents would be really surprised. Number 2 is here. So just for context, I empower, coach, and educate parents of neurodiverse kids. And so when I'm giving recommendations to parents, a lot of the time they might say something like, oh, that's nice in theory, but I don't think it's gonna work for my kid because he doesn't understand what I'm saying, right? Or I don't think that might not work because he doesn't understand. Aside from this piece, I'm gonna advocate that comprehension is not required for basic ABA strategies to work. Let me explain. Let's say I give you as a parent the recommendation, hey, I want you to present your kid with a timer when it's time to leave the park, because you say that he always has tantrums when it's time to leave the park. So I'm telling you, hey, let's use a timer. And then you as a parent, you might say, oh, that doesn't work. I don't think he'll understand what that means. Or parents say he doesn't understand how to tell time. So those comprehension skills aren't required for these strategies to work. And let me tell you why. The reason why they work is not because we're expecting him to comprehend what you're saying, but in this situation, we're creating a pattern. Let's say you consistently present the timer to your child when a transition is happening. You get down on his level, you open the timer app and you say, hey bud, you have 5 more minutes until we're here at the park and then we're gonna leave. Or you pause the TV, you say, hey bud, 5 more minutes until TV and then we're gonna turn it off. Or maybe you say, maybe you approach him and you say, hey, 5 more minutes of video games and then we do have to turn the video games off. So your child may or may not understand the expectation the first, second, third time you implement this strategy. But when you do it 20, 30, 40, 50 times, by the 100th time you present this phrase and the timer to him, what you're doing is you're creating a new learned pattern. It's just like standard conditioning. When mom gets on my level and comes down, presents the timer, something happens. There's a transitioning following. And when you're consistent with implementing the strategies that are proposed by your BCBA, you're promoting a new learned pattern for your child. And parents, let me tell you, your autistic son or daughter is really good at identifying patterns. He knows when this happens, then this happens. Our kids are really good at predicting what to expect. So that comes with your consistency. When you consistently deliver the phrase or strategy to your child, it doesn't matter if comprehension is there. It's because you've created a new conditioned pattern. It's basic pairing. That's all I had to share with you today. If you liked this video, feel free to click on this one here. My name is Celeste. Thank you for joining me. From your favorite BCBA, keep showing up. Parents, keep putting in the work. You got this.